Hello, everybody. I'm going to try this again. I'm Doc, and today we're going to talk about the all-woman spaceflight. Get some more light on this thing here. As you see, I'm new at this. I don't have the best technology or anything like that. I'm get paid. I live paycheck to paycheck, so I'm kind of like just starting out, and so bear with me. But there's been an awful lot of things on my podcast list, that cover the space flight. So it's kind of getting on my nerves a little bit. But the truth of the matter is, they went into space maybe 1 or 2 miles, and they went straight up and they came straight back down. They never went into orbit. Some people are saying they went in orbit, and that's not true. They went up to about 61 or 62 miles, and they came right back down. Personally, I think it was a big publicity stunt for Blue Origin and maybe Katy Perry. I know 2 of the women had some scientific background, so I'm not going to take any credit away from those 2. Because they spent a lot of time in school, getting degrees and things like that, in sciences that are apropos with space flight and space research. But the other 4 were just doing it for publicity, I believe. The first all-woman crew, by the way, was not them. I mean, even though it was only one woman, it was a Russian woman. We launched in, I believe, 1963, I think it was. And she was in this little teensy capsule, and she actually went to orbit. She was the first woman in space also. Women have been in space ever since the beginning of the shuttle era, pretty much. A little into the beginning of the shuttle era. Been on a space station. One of them was the commander of the space station. Done a lot of good work in space. The people that should be getting credit for anything are those people up on the ISS and the ones that ride them rockets, Russian or Dragon, up to the space station. I don't know if any woman can go on the Russian version, but that doesn't matter. They're taking risks with their lives every time they go up. This has been done before, as you well know. William Shatner went up on one of these Blue Origin flights. He didn't seem to make a big deal about it. As a matter of fact, he came back kind of upset. I guess you realize how vulnerable the world really was, and we're not doing a real good job right now of taking care of it. Matter of fact, I've been alive for 67 years, and I can tell you, my past life back in the 60s, 70s, that was like paradise compared to today. But that's not the subject. Another thing is the wealth of these women. I don't know how much money these scientist women have, but I'm sure they make it pretty good. But you need to put a deposit of $150,000 down to make the flight, and some estimates put it as high as $1 and $2 million a ticket. I wouldn't, pay that just to go up on a glorified gravity ride. Although it is much higher than any other rides in the amusement park, it pretty much does the same thing. Except for the takeoff, that would have been interesting. Not worth $1 million, but it would have been interesting. But these people have money to blow. $1 million to them is like $100 to me. Maybe even less to me. I don't know what that's like. I've always dreamed of going into space. And I'll tell you this right now, Mr. Bezos. Why don't you send a poor man into space? You can pocket that, and I'll be the first to go. My name's Dan Ellis. You can find me in Salisbury, Maryland. By all means. I'll go up there in your little rocket. Maybe then other people can really get the dream of going into space. Regular people. The people you hang around with ain't regular people. Greedy, selfish tyrants is what they are. And they're causing the world to fall apart right now. All of them. And you got to go off and do a publicity stunt with your rich little friends. I think maybe Katy Perry, I know she did it for publicity stunt and all that. The little flower thing in space, and kissing the earth when she got back, like she was gone for a year or something. You know, gone for a grand total of 11 minutes. That's up and down and where they were. Because as soon as the rocket loses forward momentum, it starts coming back down. And people were talking about the landing, but from what I understand about those space capsules, it looked really like a real hard landing. But from what I understand about that particular space capsule, there's a little pressure released right before they hit, which gives them a little air cushion to land on. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true, but it could possibly be true. I didn't research that rocket well enough. And yes, it does look like a Baby Johnson. Definitely penis shaped. But getting back to Katy Perry, she's been I think it's a little bit too much right now. Getting on her case. Even though she is a rich, self-centered, she never writes any of her music or anything. And she got in the music business because she knew somebody, basically. That's how you get into the music business and make it big, by the way. There's a lot more talent outside the music business than there is inside the music business. I'm a musician myself. And, stuff I see coming out today is terrible, but I'm regressing. I'm going to do that from time to time because I'm new at this. But I think it's being maybe a little bit too hard on her. Maybe that's just because of my passionate heart. I don't know. I have a compassionate heart for people, no matter who they are. Everybody has a right to live a good and decent life. I've had my challenges. And as you go along, you'll learn about some of them. But I'm coming out better and stronger from it. That's the way you live. Learn from your experiences, bad and good. So, what I've learned from this little thing is that, I don't want any parts of it. You want a publicity stunt that will give you a good name? Send me up. I'll go. Send somebody up that doesn't have any money to do that kind of thing. You'll get some good publicity then, I guarantee you. But so I've kind of had about enough of it. I looked over about 6 or 7 of these podcasts, and I can tell you this: it does take away the way they were saying they were astronauts and things. It takes away from all the hard work that men and women in space have done and on the ground to make space flight possible. It's an insult to them. It really is. I think I owe them an apology. All those people in space, because they worked hard. Some of them went to school for like 12 years and stuff, and beyond that. To get to the level where they are now. That's the thing I wanted to do when I was a kid. Because of course I saw the moon landing, I saw the first men in space, and all that stuff. I saw it from its very beginning. It's hard. Space flight is inherently dangerous. I think the count is something like 17 American astronauts and at least 5 that I know of Russian cosmonauts were, died, in space flight. Most of them were on the space shuttle, but died early on when it was being developed. And that's the most dangerous time. The space shuttle accidents are just should never have happened. But I'll send that for another stream. I'll talk about that. Another science and technology podcast. But it's nice that you can send a rocket up 62 miles and all that stuff. But when you ever going to get to orbit, Mr. Bezos? You're promising all these space hotels and all this crap. All you've been doing is sending up a giant penis 62 miles. That's all I see me doing. So get off your butt and at least give SpaceX some competition. They'll have the Starship running before you get anything in orbit at this rate. You stop playing around with little political stunts, not political stunts, publicity stunts, and make yourself a real spaceflight company. Because this just proves how inept you are, really, the spaceflight. You have to come up with this all-woman spaceflight. And I really thought they were going to orbit when I first heard it. I thought it would be like the Dragon capsule that took the 4 civilians up. You know, they'd be in orbit for 4 days or something like that. Boy, was I disappointed when I saw what they did. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk of death on some flight like that. You know, something could go wrong, the rocket could explode and all. So, you know, I'm not going to take away any of the courage for getting on the ride. That's what I consider it a ride, you know, not a space flight. You know. So, with that, I'm going to end here, and my next one will be on the failure of Christianity in this day and age. That'll be my next stream, which hopefully I'll be putting out tomorrow afternoon about the same time as this one. So thank you very much. And if you like and you want to subscribe, please do. I'm just getting started, so I probably have 1 or 2 subscribers. That's about it. But you know, just keep on trucking. You know, and, you know, if I could say one thing, it's like about how I'm feeling right now. It's like something came to my mind. I got to get it off my chest. It's you know, if a race's maturity does not keep up with its technology, the technology is certain to destroy the race. So I see the world heading in that direction, and I'm really sad about it. But no, like I said, I'm regressing, and I'll talk about that another time. Thank you very much for your attention. I know it's been kind of a haphazard video, but I'll get better as I go along. Thank you very much. Okay.